closet door opens, literally like verbatim, like scary movie kind of thing. These eyes just start like beaming at me, and my heart was beating so fast. I was terrified. I jumped down off the bed and like ran. I was literally like on my knees, like crying to my aunt, like, "Oh, there's something in there! Like it's something in there."
All right, Krys, let's talk about how we met.
Okay, how did we
Yeah,
meet?
I could talk about how I ran into you. How about
I
that?
think that's a good place to go. Yeah.
Okay, so I was scrolling through Instagram and I'm like looking for spiritual teachers and stuff, specifically people that were going to the Conscious Life Expo because I had decided that I wanted to go, and I
Mm-hmm.
didn't have the money yet, so it was kind of like just in the
Yep.
background. So I ran across your profile and I scrolled through a little bit and I was like, this is interesting. I don't really know exactly what he's talking about, but it seems interesting. And then I saw that I think you posted something about the Conscious Life Expo. And I was like,
Mm.
oh wow, that's awesome. I want to go. So I messaged you so I could do an interview with you.
Yep.
Now, at the time, my ego was just like, well, the only way you can work with someone is if you interview them.
Mm.
And it's also like a creative thing that I like to do anyway on the side. I like to talk to people. And what better way to do that is use the excuse of, hey, I want to interview you.
Let's interview.
Let me
Yeah.
get in your head. Yeah. So, anyways, I messaged you, and if you remember, I was just like, hey, do you want to interview? Blah, blah, blah. And you were just like, only if the universe wills it, or something like that.
Well, so you were like, yeah, so you had reached out, and I think I didn't see the message right away. It was, I think, a week or two, and I circled back and I saw it. And yeah, you said something like, "Hey, you're going to the expo." I was like, "Yeah, I'm really excited. It's my first time." You're like, "Well, maybe I can interview you whenever we're
Mhm.
there." And I was like, in my mind, I was like, "There's going to be hundreds and thousands of people. The chances of me running into you very small." But I said,
Yeah.
what I had said was, if the frequency aligns, then we'll do it. And so it was funny because I think I got to the expo right on time. There wasn't a lot of people there. And lo and behold, you were like one of the first probably 10 people that I had ran into. And whenever I saw you, I was like, "Oh, I know who you are." And you're like, "Yeah, I was messaging you on IG." And I was like, "Well, I guess the frequencies were aligned." So yeah. And then we kind of took it from there.
Yeah, it's funny how many times we ran into each other though.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like
It
that's
was,
hilarious. You were like, maybe later. And I'm like, all right, never mind. And then
yeah. Yeah.
and
And
then
then
you
I'd
just
be
kept running into me, kept running into
I
me.
know. I'd be like, okay, yeah, yeah, because we didn't do the interview right away, did we?
No. No,
No, that's
you're
right.
you were just like,
Yeah,
you know what, let's just go ahead and do it right now before my workshop and let's get it over with. And I'm like, all right, cool.
yeah, yeah, that's right. Because I was like, yeah, I was running around doing
Yeah.
a lot of stuff, getting ready,
Hmm.
and then we were in the hall, and I think it was right. We did two, didn't we? We did two interviews.
We did, I think it was one, and I just recorded your workshop. Basically, I just asked you a random question about the reptilian race,
Yep,
and you gave me your opinion. Yeah. And
yep,
that was fine. That's really like for me, this is why I love like just kind of like going with the flow, because when you try to force it and you think it looks a specific way, it always looks different at the end of the day. So I'm over
yep,
here approaching you for an interview when really it was just a small, like short 2-minute video about the reptilian race
yeah,
that turned into a really, a really great friendship.
yeah.
And that's really what I needed, not the interview itself. So
Oh,
yeah,
the interview was just a placeholder for
yeah,
the connection that would develop with cosmic frequency and everything we're doing now. So,
yeah.
I mean, you had to approach it that way because that was the words I could hear that made me realize, okay, well, this is important. Let's see um, what is playing out here. And then I didn't know we were going to talk about reptilians to begin with, but we did, and it was great. And now here we are. So,
Yep. And
what
you know
did
what?
you?
Another thing too is helping you with your workshop, helping you like record some footage of it because you were by yourself. You didn't have that
Hmm.
assistance. That kind of led me into helping other businesses too with little things like that. Because a lot of spiritual teachers, they travel alone or they might have like one assistant, and
Yep.
that assistant's work in the booth at this
Hmm.
event. So, anyways, just meeting you has opened up a lot of doors for me. And the main
Awesome.
door is me helping you in particular with cosmic frequency.
Yeah. Yeah.
So let's talk about that.
Oh man, yeah, but so thank you for that. Thank you for
Yeah.
showing up for people like myself and others because it's huge. The work that I do is very specific. It has its own little pocket in the universe, and I have had help over the years, but what you brought to the table as far as the consistency and the like focus and attention has been great. So it's like been super revolutionary for cosmic frequency. So yeah, just wanted to give you that
Thank
shout out
you.
real quick. Yeah. For others who will watch, Tanisha is doing a fantastic job. Um, okay. So where to begin? You're the interviewer. You ask the questions with I
Okay,
could go in
so
any direction with the
oh yeah, I know
with
that's a
the
long story, I'm sure. So let's start with why you were at the Cosmic Life Expo, how you found out about it, what was your intention, and things
mm,
like that.
yeah, so okay. So can you hear me okay if I scoot back and kind of sit over here?
Yeah, I can hear you
Can you hear
fine.
me? Can you hear me? Okay. So I have been doing what I'm doing for, I don't know, like close to 2 decades, for a while, and it's progressed and it's evolved as I have. But I got to a point where I realized that the wisdom and the experiences I've had in my life, are not common, but they're also just not random things for no reason. That they played a role and that they are very important because they help me dive into the deeper mechanics of the universe, but also help me develop as a teacher. And so I realize that I have something to offer. That I'm not just here as a typical starseed, but like I said, the experiences and the information that I have come across within myself and externally is meant for something bigger than just me sitting here and being like, oh, that's cool. Oh, yeah, I was meant to share it. So I'm sitting down one day and I'm meditating on being a speaker and being in front of hundreds and thousands of people and just really feeling the hearts of their being and just them emanating with this information and uplifting. And I'm just thinking to myself in this meditation, this is the life I want. I want to be in service in this way. Travel, share cosmic frequency, share the knowledge, and see humanity transcend their own kind of shit, basically.
Mhm.
And so I come out of the meditation, and the cool thing is, whenever you get into advanced meditations like the ones I practice, you learn how to access the ether or the Akashic field almost instantly. It's no longer just like a hope and a wish. That's a tangent. But so I come out of the meditation after being in that deep state and I hear the words conscious expo. And I was like,
Mm.
I don't know. And I knew I wanted to be on some sort of platform and communicating with people who could allow me to share my story, um, but also really the message, not even the story, but the message. And so I just Google Conscious Expo and Conscious Life Expo pops up. I go onto my Instagram, I think a couple minutes later, and they had sent me a message in my DMs about and asking me to speak at the expo. So as I'm looking for them, they're looking for me, like literally
That's wild.
instantaneously. And
Okay.
I had never heard of the Conscious Life Expo, never saw them on Instagram. And like the chances of me coming out of that meditation, setting that intention, aligning with that frequency, which is a reality in and of itself, and then them messaging me. So it's literally noetic science, ether physics, and what I teach all wrapped up in like that one experience.
Hmm.
So cool.
That's powerful.
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing how that happened. I couldn't even imagine, meditating and then getting such a clear message like that. And then, following it to the point where you find out that they're actually looking for you as well.
Yeah,
Like they're like that's not a coincidence. Like there are no such things as coincidences, right? I'm sure you can agree with that. So
exactly.
let's go back to that moment where you were meditating and you realized that you wanted to help others.
Mm.
Obviously that is a major shift from where you were before, which coming from a college graduate slash college football player
Oh
slash
yeah.
Christian household. Let's talk about where it began for you and the main parts that got you to where you are today in your mindset.
Mm. Yeah. So I would say ever since I was young, I've always been different in the sense of how I approach life. Like even raised Christian, I would have these paranormal, supernatural experiences that I would try to ask my pastor about, multiple pastors, and I would either get a "I'm just not sure" or "I think that's in this Bible verse," and but it was never anything that was tangible that I could actually feel at rest with. It
Mhm.
was always kind of this, I don't know, God, ask God, you know? Um, and so my mind wanted to know why these things were happening to me and what they meant and why at such a young age and why is no one else telling me about it. When I tried to talk to my parents about it, they were open to ghosts and things like that and spirits, just because I guess in religion, you know, you have the concepts of angels and things like that. So it's not that it was completely denied, it was more so only acceptable to a point. Like when it went into something other than the Holy Spirit or an angel, then it was like, ah, that's probably a demon. And
And it's
which
always a really thin line, right? It's just like, how do you know
it's
exactly what
like, when
okay?
does it become a demon and when
When
is it
it's
just, you know, why is it okay to accept it on one level, but it's not okay to accept it outside of that box or
right,
that framework, right?
right.
So, and I'm going to tell some specific things that happened, but I just want to draw out the timeline or the time
Mhm,
sphere, as I like to call it. So I had a Christian upbringing, lots of paranormal things that I will share. But then I got into college and I started, you know, I was always very athletic. And I knew that if I wanted to go to college, if I wanted to, because we didn't have the money, like there's no way I was going to be able to pay for my tuition. And so I worked my butt off through athletics to become the best athlete, one of the best athletes in the country at that time.
mhm.
And it's funny because I remember it was my sophomore year. I got like my first letter from like Temple or something. I'm like, what? Like, I had no idea that this stuff, I didn't, that wasn't a reality for me yet at
Mhm.
what, you know, 15, however old I was. And that letter kind of set me on this domino effect of all this schools reaching out to the
What is
point
the did you say temple?
where, yeah, Temple Owls were the first letter. Yeah, it's like a college.
Oh, it's a college, okay. I was
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
temple, that sounds really
Temple.
religious.
Isn't that interesting that that was the
Yeah.
first one that reached out to me, right? Because the universe is all about mirrors, and so Temple, the college, but also Temple, and here I am doing
Mhm.
this. It's like a whole, yeah, it's cool juxtaposition. But football went amazing. I ended up being one of the best players in the country. Got a full ride scholarship to Pitt, and transferred to UMass. Had potential to go to the NFL, but there was a point in time
Mhm.
where I remember this day so vividly. I was sitting in my dorm room and there was college scouts on the campus and my coach texted me and said, "Hey, are you going to come down to run the 40-yard dash?" Because I was really fast. He's like, "I know you do." He's like, "I know you'll do really, really well. You've been working hard, all these things." But there was also this um, job fair going on. And at this job fair, there was going to be hundreds of job scouts and people looking for, you know, employees and all these things. And I knew either two things were going to happen in my life. I was going to go to the NFL or become a teacher. That was it. I knew that since like forever that I was a teacher, but I was also a really good athlete. So I had a choice to make, and this is kind of where I think I jumped into the timeline that I'm in now, because there's either go the, you know, famous NFL route or where I'm at now. So I'm sitting there, see the text message. I really just paused, think to myself, and I said, you know what? I'm not gonna go. I'm not gonna go to the scouting combine. I'm just gonna go to this job fair. So I go on YouTube, learn how to tie a tie, put these fake glasses on because I thought I'd look smarter. It actually worked. Went to the job fair, got my first job as a teacher in a public school, then in a private school, then kind of just stayed on that trajectory. And through that whole thing, yeah, there was all kinds of paranormal things, but that's kind of the trajectory of how I got here.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's such an intense timeline. You were a college football player, then you were a public school teacher, and you said a private school teacher.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Wow, like, and then now you're a spiritual teacher. So,
Right.
I mean, you technically did what you wanted to do ultimately.
Ultimately, I got here.
Exactly, right? Okay,
Yeah.
so let's talk about those moments, those paranormal experiences, quote unquote paranormal experiences, right? That happened
Yeah.
that started the shift of your consciousness and your mindset to where you are today.
Yeah. So that for me, that's the stuff that is really enlightening and powerful.
Mhm.
And I still don't know anyone who's had the experiences I've had. I'm sure they're out there, but I haven't really met them. I find a lot of people talk and speak from a place of what they've read and it's supposed to be like. I've lived this. So, for example, um, one of the earliest things I can remember about my childhood is I would have very vivid dreams, and so vivid that I would wake up, my eyes would open, and I would see the dreams playing out in front of me. I
Mhm.
know that sounds crazy, but one time I was dreaming of this squirrel and it was chasing me with a staple gun.
Mhm.
And I was terrified because it was chasing me with a staple gun. And so I wake up like screaming. And I kid you not, I see this squirrel on the foot of my bed staring at me. And
What?
I'm like, what is going on? I'm like freaking out. But what was happening was this. I was literally in a different dimension. So
Mhm.
even though my physical eyes were open, my perception was so expanded that I could actually see that other reality and that dream playing out in front of me because it's all real. It's just a matter of what you can perceive and what you can't. So that was really interesting. And then there was another time I was sleeping and my aunt was watching me, and I don't know where my parents were, but my aunt was watching me, had a bunk bed, had a closet in the room. I remember this was probably one of the biggest imprints that has stayed with me forever. Um, and I'm chilling, just not really doing much, laying in my bed. My closet door opens and I see these eyes, literally like verbatim, like scary movie kind of thing. These eyes just start like beaming at me, and my heart was beating so fast. I was terrified. I jumped down off the bed and like ran. I was literally like on my knees, like crying to my aunt, like, "Oh, there's something in there! Like it's something in there." They actually had to call my parents to come home, and like we don't know what's going on with him. Um, but yeah, so that was, it wasn't traumatizing, but it just was eye opening that I could see into the unseen. Um, and there were times where I would see shadows moving around the room and shadow beings. Like this was like at 5 years old, 4 or 5 years old,
Mm.
seeing and having these kinds of experiences, not really understanding what was going on, no one to validate or verify. Um, and then it started turning into grays. I would have dreams, and we did not watch alien movies, extraterrestrials. There was nothing like that. Was not a part of our family household growing up. The cosmos was not a thing that we really got into. It was heaven and the pearly white gates. It was never extraterrestrials. So I had this knowing that there was grays who were abducting me, but I had no external reason for that to be part of my reality, which lets me know that it was literally something that was happening.
Mm.
Um, I now know who those beings were and what their intentions were, and it's actually really cool. It's not anything, nefarious. But I had this kind of fear at first of these gray beings that were abducting me. Um, yeah, we're only at age 5. Jeez.
That's such a young age, to be having these experiences. And I think
Yeah.
also maybe if your belief system, I don't know, at age 5, I'm assuming you guys were going to the church every Sunday.
We're going to church every
So
Sunday, Sunday night, Wednesday, and sometimes even Friday, and then vacation Bible school in the summer.
right. Okay. So you have that background on top of, the fact that the entertainment industry uses a lot of what you were seeing and what you're experiencing as a form
Mm,
of like horror, like
mm-hmm.
that's what they believe, that it's something
Mm-hmm.
negative. Like
Exactly.
that was my experience. Like my mom actually allowed us to watch horror movies when we were kids. So
Mm,
every time I had a paranormal experience, I contributed it to demons,
mm-hmm.
evil,
Mm-hmm.
ghosts, bad things.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
that's the name of the game. Is nothing actually ever happened that was bad.
mhm,
It was all just me at that age not knowing what was going on and not having the environment for my soul to comprehend, my consciousness. But of course, they're going to use those kinds of experiences because humans live in a reality that is intermeshed with all kinds of energies and beings.
mhm.
And they know that when people wake up and find out the truth, the game's up. So they need to try to capitalize on the ignorance of the people and place those things in movies as horror so that when someone does have an encounter, well, they won't go any further. They'll go back into their 3D box, you know? So
Yeah.
yeah, I figured that out for sure. I want to talk about the experiences in church I had though.
Okay.
So we had that kind of baseline setting as a kid. Um, I remember also one time seeing my hands and like crying because I was like, these are not my hands. Like, who am I?
Right? Oh my
I'm
God.
like, what? This is not my
I've
body.
done
Like,
that. Yeah, that's wild. Okay, go
yeah. No, it's good. I used to do this in the school bathroom and I'd be like, wait, I'm black? Like, wait, I kid you not. Like, I remember
ahead.
being like, this body is not like what is like what
Yeah.
you know? So these kinds of things led me to where I am. So fast forward into church, we would go to these huge church services where, you know, people are speaking in tongues and falling over and like raising their hands and everything. Like I've seen it all. Man, hundreds and hundreds of people. And so this one time I'm standing there, my mom's off to my right, and I think we ironically might have been in Florida or something like that. I don't remember, but it was one of these big churches. And I never liked to sing in church. It made me feel so drained. I always fell asleep. There was something about being in church that my body just couldn't handle. It was really bizarre, but it makes sense because there was an incompatibility in frequency. I was not meant to be there. And I think that energy in the church is actually draining me of my life force because the matrix, what it does is it needs to balance itself out.
Mhm.
So if there's a high vibrating or high frequency being or entity, it'll literally try to assimilate it. And that's when people feel drained. So it's like everything has to come into balance. So if you're too high, the matrix tries to drain you, you know. The opposite is true as well. But standing in church, and this lady taps me on my shoulder, and she's dressed in white, and she puts her hand out like this, and it wasn't a fist bump. I intuitively knew to lay my hand open, and she drops this symbol. It's like the Jesus Christ symbol, the fishers of men.
Mhm.
Excuse me. She drops that symbol into my hand, and she smiles. I'm like, wow, thanks, cool. Like, what's this for? I turn to tell my mom. I'm like, Mom, look at what this lady gave me, and she goes, what lady? I look, and she's gone. There's no lady there.
Mm.
And she's like, Krys, what lady? And I'm like looking around, like, where the heck did she go? But I had the little fishers of men symbol, um, which is interesting because if you know what the biblical message and meaning behind the fishers of men is, it actually correlates to what I'm doing now. Ironically enough, even though it was
Yeah.
from a religious standpoint, it was also seed that was planted. Like,
Yep.
hey, we see you. We're gonna use what you understand based on where you're at right now to
Mm.
get you this message. Because if they were like, hey, you're a cosmic ambassador, you're gonna be here one day speaking to people about ET contact, that would not have I don't know. So they had to use the best that they could in that moment to um trigger my consciousness. My mom says, don't lose that. It's really special and important. Of course, I lost it, but I still have the memory of the
Mhm.
that experience. So
Yeah.
yeah, that was one thing that was really powerful, transformative.
Right. Yeah, that's so interesting. Like all these different, and this is where I can kind of like relate to you and your Christian background. Like I wasn't raised in a Christian household at all. I wasn't introduced to the Bible until I would say like the age of 16, I believe, 15 or 16, and
Oh wow.
that was forced, yeah. So we were in a homeless shelter, me and my family, and
Mm,
it was about a total of 2 or 3 years that we were homeless, and the first shelter was faith-based, which is really common
mm,
for these shelters, and, they basically the stipulation was you either had to believe in God or you had to be willing to go to church, and if you missed
mm.
church, then you were kicked out of the shelter. So, yeah, so I
No.
had to go, and that's what connected me I'm happy for it because if I hadn't been connected to Christianity and I had
Mm-hmm.
considered myself a Christian at some point in my life, then I probably wouldn't, I wouldn't say probably wouldn't. I would have, it would have taken me a lot longer to be connected to metaphysical realm, you know,
Mm-hmm.
spiritual
Mm-hmm.
realm and things like that. So in
Right.
a way, Christianity can be like the foundation.
Yes.
And if your conscious level is rising or, you know, your theme of consciousness continues to evolve enough, you can make that connection eventually. It might
Yes.
not happen right away, but eventually it will. So I want to talk about when that connection was made for you, because a lot of people, when they decide to turn their, I don't want to say turn their back on, but when they decide to leave the church,
Mm-hmm.
they put up walls. And then
Mm-hmm.
they say, well, church is bad. I'm going to go to Christian, or not, I'm sorry, to a spirituality.
Yeah.
And then everything else other than that is bad, which is
Yep.
very basically the same mindset in a way.
It
So
is.
when did you combine the two? When did you find that there were similarities in basically everything?
Yeah. So real quick, you see what I'm wearing? This just
Yeah.
reminded me. This is kind of, if you look at this, it's like a fish on the side. And that's like,
Hmm.
if you, so I just connected that dot that I have not done in years. But yeah, it just reminded
Wow.
me of the symbol. It's not the same, it's
Hmm.
similar, but is again, it was also, it was like that time collapsing moment that I'm having right now of like, holy shit, this is what they, yeah. I'm being mind blown actually seeing this because this came
Yep.
through meditation um like a year or two ago. But if you just look up like the Fishers of Men symbol, it's like a fish on its side. It has esoteric meanings, but
Yep.
yeah, so that's really cool. Because this would be the uninverted version of it, I guess you could say that. Anyways, so when did the dots connect for me? It was I still went to church in college, but it was forced. And playing college football, there was a like a pastor that would always come in and speak to the team.
Hmm.
And I remember times I was like, I don't really want to go, but I feel like I have to go. Not really sure why I feel like I have to go. It was all a guilt trip thing.
Hmm.
But I would go and I'm like, I've heard all these messages before. I've read the Bible 100 times. Like it's kind of getting boring. Like I was literally just getting bored of hearing the same thing and not and like seeing people. Like we would go to church and I would see my parents come home and they would still be mad and angry and upset. And I'm like, well, if God is so good and if Jesus is so great, then how come you're not happy? Like, what is going on here? So that's when I started to realize things were different. And then I remember after I graduated, I simply wanted to know what was happening to me. I wanted to know who God was and what God was. And so I started to do some research. I'm skipping around. Wow, putting this together is a little funky.
Hmm.
Before I
Take
got
a
to the
second if you
point
need
of
to.
like, go ahead.
I said, take a second if you need to.
Yeah, yeah. I'm trying to think because like there was that part, but then I also need to talk about the college professor because that's when things started to really click. So in college, I need to talk about the paranormal experiences I had in college that led me to realizing I wanted to research God.
Hmm.
So backtracking, I'm in college and I am sleeping in this dorm room during summer school. And I had a roommate, huge 604, 320-pound offensive lineman. I'm like 5'9", 5'10", 200 pounds. Like this guy's huge. He's like over there sleeping and snoring. And I wake up in the middle of the night and we had a laptop kind of off in the corner of the room. And the laptop was always unplugged and was always kind of shut down at night. It turns on. I watch the mouse or the pointer on the screen move around and then point to YouTube, click YouTube, watch something be typed in, and the song starts to play.
What?
So I'm like, my roommate's name, wake up, man, you gotta see this. I'm like, what's going on? He's like, oh my God, dude, what's happening? I'm like, I don't know.
So
I
wait, what
don't
song
know.
started playing?
I don't remember. I've tried to remember for
No.
years. But the song started to play. We both saw it be typed in. This dude was not a religious or spiritual guy. He was just your average jock football player.
Hmm.
So the next day we go down and we're like trying to tell the teammates about this. And he seeing him this like kind of like shocked, but also like intrigued was really validating for me because I was like, he really like he was there, he witnessed it. And he was like, dude, I don't, he was trying to tell everyone like that we don't know what happened. And it turned out to be kind of a joke on the team, like, oh, Krys has ghosts and things like that,
Yeah.
kind of got made fun of. There was another moment, um, I think that same semester, where I was sleeping and I wasn't in my room. I was in like, I think one of the um it was like this, it's like this little side room, basically, sleeping on the couch. I didn't drink, so I wasn't drunk. I was just like chilling. And there was someone was drinking. When I fell asleep, if I can remember this correctly, there was this beer can in the middle of the room. And when I woke up, the beer can was gone. We couldn't find it. Asked all the teammates, no one knew where it went. And then we found it somewhere like in this random spot in the back of the room. It was just like little weird things like that would happen to me all the time, where things just wouldn't add up, didn't make sense. Um, then there was another moment, and I'm gonna go in like story mode now, just to give this context. Um, I was cleaning my room, and I am not very, I mean, I'm not a messy person, but I'm also like, I like to clean up whenever I need to clean up. So I'm cleaning my room, and I take my jacket. I had this nice gray jacket, and I kind of place it up on this top shelf in my room. Room looks great. Bed's made. Everything's done. When you leave a college dorm, it always locks behind you. At least ours did. I didn't have a roommate at the time. So vividly remember putting the jacket on the top shelf, leave the room, go get some food. About an hour later, come back. The jacket is laying on the bed, perfectly open like this, arms like this, zipped up perfectly, just like this. I just said I'm not a very neat person. Why? One, I never, even to this day, have ever taken a jacket and zipped it up perfectly and laid it on a bed like that. That's just not, I don't know many people that do that, to be honest. And so I'm thinking to myself, who was in my room? And even if they were in my room, if they got through the locked door, why would they randomly put my jacket on the bed like that? Like, what is the point of that? What's the purpose?
Right.
Makes no sense, right? Something was trying to get my attention.
Hmm.
Um, I have two more stories, or should I pause? I
No,
know
let's
there's,
tell.
yeah, there's a lot, because like I have to draw this out so people can see why, when I do what I do, where it's coming from,
Right.
and that I know what I'm talking about, because I've lived these kind of experiences. Um, so there was another time where let me see if I can go here. So I had this job where I was a after school caretaker, and then I also helped with like summer camp for like the kids in the college town and stuff, the little kids. After work, I was always really, really tired, and so I would go to out into the woods and just sit and meditate. Tell you how I got to meditation in a second. This one time, there's this river, creek. It was more like a creek, and there was this kind of sandbar. I go out, sit on the sandbar, and it's a beautiful day. And I just lay back. I just kind of go into this trance and deep meditation, seeing different colors. Again, I don't do psychedelics or anything. This is just all it's how I am. I feel the sun, and I want to open my eyes to take a picture of the sun. So I open my eyes and I go to grab my phone. But when I do, I look over, and there's this woman on the other side of the riverbank. And again, dressed in white, she's just staring at me. And I'm like, oh, okay. What, like, what's up? Just thinking to myself, who is she? I'm like, yeah, just thinking to myself, like, who is this woman and why is she just staring at me? It wasn't like creepy, it was just kind of like observation mode. And so again, I picked up my phone, and then I went to take a picture, and then as I turned, I realized she wasn't there. Right. So like that moment from like, oh, who is this woman, to pick up the phone and look up, she's gone. And so I immediately stand up, because I'm thinking to myself, because this stuff has happened to me so often that I developed the ability to be very logical and try to debunk it instantly,
Mhm.
because I wanted to know the truth. What's going on here? So I stand up and I start walking around, because it was the woods. It was the middle of fall, so the leaves were falling down in the trees. There wasn't a lot of foliage, right? And so I'm walking and I'm looking for her. I don't see her anywhere. I don't hear any footsteps. You can see pretty far down into the woods because everything's open. There's no leaves on the tree. And she had on a white gown, I believe, or at least a light colored gown, just like the woman in the church. Excuse me. So I'm not seeing her anywhere, not hearing any footsteps. So I don't know who she is. Although now this today, I didn't know then, but now I do know to some degree who these women who have been.
Spirit
But
guides or like,
time travelers in a way.
okay.
Um,
Okay.
and there's a deeper, more cosmic story behind who these women are. It's really cool, actually, how it all ties together.
Okay, I'll wait.
Yeah, it's really, really cool. So, um, there's like two other stories. Another time back in college, I was dating someone, and she would always come over to my apartment before she played softball. She would always come over to my apartment before her practice, and we'd hang out and before she had to leave. And she would always put her keys on I had a little tiny glass table in the middle of the living room. She'd always put her keys on a little tiny glass table. We'd go off and watch a movie, whatever it is, make something to eat. So this day she comes over, puts the keys down. We go into the kitchen to go make some pasta. Make the pasta, however long it takes to make pasta, 5-10 minutes. And it was an apartment. So again, in college, you lock the doors because people are crazy sometimes. So you lock the doors. She goes to leave. We walk back into the living room and we cannot find the keys. There's no keys.
Hmm.
And so we're like, oh, they must have fell underneath the table or something. Not there. Oh, well, they must be somewhere in the living room. Not there.
Hmm.
So she starts to panic and starts to cry because she's going to miss her softball practice. She's the captain of the team. And I'm like, it's all good. We're going to find them. Like things just don't disappear. At least not to most people. To me, I guess they do. So we're looking through the whole entire apartment now, and it's not a big apartment. It had a kitchen, a bedroom, and a tiny living room. Not much, there's not many places for keys to hide. So we're thinking to ourselves, well, if someone came in, we would have heard them unlock the door. We would have heard them take the keys. If it was a mouse, you would have heard the keys rattling as they're taking them away. None of that happened. Um, Thought to myself, well, we'll find them at the end of the semester once I move out, because of course the keys just don't disappear. So her mother ends up calling or texting her and asked her if she heard about the accident that was right down the road from my apartment. And we're both like, oh my God, if you would have gone to practice, you could have been in that accident. There was a water pipe that blew up and it was causing all this flooding and everything on the road that she would have traveled upon if she would have had the keys to leave for practice.
Hmm.
End of this semester, we never found the keys. Still don't know where those keys went.
That's so crazy.
Yeah.
It's
Yep.
whenever things like that happen, it's kind of just like you already know, like you can't debunk it. So in that moment, was that like the turning point where you started kind of thinking, okay,
Yeah.
I have to start considering it might be something else here.
Yeah. So it was like those last two stories. It was
Yeah.
the meditation with the lady showing up, like, what? And
Hmm.
then it was those keys. And this is still in college. I'm like, something is going on. And I didn't have answers at that time.
Oh, okay.
So I was like, what is happening? How is this? Who is doing this kind of stuff? And is anyone
Right.
else experiencing this? And so a friend introduced me to a movie called Zeitgeist. It's a documentary. He was a football teammate of mine. He's a cool dude. It's funny. But we'd always have these deep conversations in school, and just really start to think about things on a really deep level. And I really believe he was there, and he may not admit to this day, but there as kind of like a placeholder
Hmm.
for me, because he kind of helped me realize that I wasn't crazy. There was other things going on. Introduced this documentary. Zeitgeist is amazing. If you haven't watched it, I
I've
should go
heard of
back.
it.
Yeah, there's like three of them.
Hmm.
And so that my progression to where I am now it has been gradual. It's been an acceptance of I'm not normal. Things happen, but there's a reason, and you'll understand one day kind of energy. versus like a solid point, because there's still more. I mean, yeah, like there was a moment I came home one time and I had we used to have like the speakers back in the day. You like plug into your laptop,
Right, right. The little speakers.
the little
Yeah.
speakers, right? We'd have like a USB cord or something like that.
Right, right.
Came home, there's something playing through my speakers.
Hmm.
It was like this jazz music. You could hear people talking, but it was inaudible. But it was really kind of like, and there was kind of this music playing in the background. I'm like, oh, I must have left YouTube open. Go on my laptop. No YouTube is open. No iTunes is open. Okay, I'll just shut off the laptop. It'll be fine. Shut off the laptop. There's you can still hear it coming through the speaker. Okay, I'll unplug it from the laptop. That'll stop the sound. Unplug it from the laptop. It's still coming through the speaker. Okay, I'll unplug it from the wall and turn the whole thing off, because that clearly is going to stop who's ever talking. Turn it off, unplug it, and it still continued for probably about 10 minutes of just this sound, people talking, things happening. And there was no electricity going into the speaker. So
Hmm.
another kind of like, okay, what is this? What's going on? I got to figure something out,
Hmm.
you know? And that put me on the journey of like, who is God? What is God? And looking up all kinds of different things. And then one thing led to the next. College professor introduced me to meditation. And yeah, kind of that's kind of it right there without getting into another hour long of experience.
No, that's fine. That's perfect. So I do have a question about that though. I'm curious as to, are you still experiencing paranormal things like that, or is it pretty much just you're getting the messages through meditation now that you're open enough to receive them?
Yeah. So now, current day, like today,
Mhm.
to when cosmic frequency really started to come online, quite literally, the paranormal things that happen to me now are more synchronicities. They're not paranormal. I understand what's happening now. And
Mhm.
so there's a communication process, there's instant manifestation, there's a look up into the cosmos and be like, hey, look, da 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 da, and then something will happen.
Mhm.
And now that I know that there has been beings and guides quite literally behind this, not just, you know, angels and invisible spirits, I understand now that I was being groomed and curated and guided here,
Mhm.
because and it goes into who I am and what my mission here is on earth. So yeah, it's more of kind of turned into a every part of every it's like kind of part of my life now, just like how things happen.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's do you feel like you're kind of missing those other things that kind of happen? Like just I mean,
To
I would
miss
love to come into my room and see like my clothes moved around. Like that would get me excited because I'm like, okay, I see you, and I love direct messages too whenever I meditate, but it's different
Yeah.
when something completely random happens that you're not expected or
Yeah.
expecting. So there's
Hmm.
like a little bit of excitement there. Do you feel like you kind of miss that or
Well, I don't miss it because it still happens, but now when it happens, I more or less understand it. And if I don't, it
okay.
puts me on a path to find the answer now. So the thing is,
Oh.
I have enough context now to comprehend a lot of the natures of reality that people don't they just chalk it up to, I don't get it. But through the research I've done, through the meditation, through the experiences I've had, I've been able to curate a foundation of information
Mhm.
that now I can have as something happen and have a 60-70% chance of understanding why. And if I don't understand the 30 to 40%, I start asking questions and I get the answers. Because
Yeah,
nothing
of
is random. Magic
course.
and that stuff is just knowledge not understood. But occasionally I'll get something that does happen. I'm like, uh-huh, okay. I don't know how or why or when or what. That's cool. So I do have that kind of like childlike, ah,
Yeah.
curiosity still.
That's really cool. So
Yeah.
let's see. I think I want to start talking about your name now. You
Mm.
chose the name Krys Ra, and
Hmm.
I want a little bit more information about why you chose that name. And I'm not going to share your government name. So so let's talk about Krys Ra and then Chris Still. Tell me about that.
Yeah. So Hmm. So Krys Ra. So I was born, I'm not, I was born a Chris. So I'm not going to get into all that, but
Okay, okay.
I thank you for respecting that, by the way.
Mhm,
Um, and if you look up the definition of that name, it means the bearer of Christ or Christ carrier.
mm,
And names are really important because names carry a vibration. They carry a signal from the source. They're kind of the standing wave that is the blueprint that one is to either fulfill during their life or have the potential to fulfill. So names are not random. There's a lot of power in a tone or in a word or an utterance called a name.
mhm,
So growing up Christian, my mom would always say different things like, I've never seen someone as close to God as you. And it just was always confusing. And I'm like, why? Because I'm really good at sports. And she's like, no, there's something different about you. And I'm like,
mm,
oh, okay. But it was never anything I really took too serious. But again, these little things that have happened to me, I really do feel like have been orchestrated and integrated into my life to help me do what I'm doing now and give me a frame of reference, you know? Um, and a lot of people thought I was going to be a pastor. And it's funny because I'm a minister.
mm,
So there was this energy of this Christ kind of energy always since I was young. And so when I got older, I was like, well, I don't really like that name. I want to spell my name Krys.
mhm,
And that felt really cool because it felt unique to my consciousness and something that came through. I think it just showed up when I don't even remember. It wasn't in meditation. I think it was just one day I was like, I just want to spell my name Krys. I don't know anyone else ever in the world who spelled their name like that. Um, so the Ra L came through actually in meditation. I was actually working with a client, and the full name was Ra Esh L ESH, which I don't really share a lot. I think it's on my Facebook, but Krys Ra Esh L. And I've kind of dissected each part of that name, Ra, Esh, and L. Ra for me is an emanation, it's a tone. So if I were to just like Ra, you would start to feel this reverberation and you would
mhm.
start to feel this kind of like really powerful energy. And for me, it doesn't mean the sun god as much as it means the inner light or the source, right? The spark of divinity that is I, that is within, that is emanating. El means in a lot of different spiritual texts, God or the one or the original. So Ra, the inner source, and then El, God, the inner God source. Krys Ra-El, right? So crystal, crystallization of the inner God source. That's kind of where we're going at with all the name. But that has been, I see that name kind of changing, as you said, Chris Still. And I haven't, that's not on anything other than the videos that people are going to see in the academy. But there is an ancient lineage that has not, it doesn't originate on Earth. It originates in the cosmos. And the official title is Dor Cristil. So it's Dor Cristil.
Hmm.
And a Dor Cristil is one who seeks to liberate or free the consciousness and the minds of a planet or of a people through enlightenment. They are a being who sees that the path to um, peace and harmony comes through the realization of the self.
Mhm.
And they often battle darkness, their own inner darkness and external darkness, right? And so the Dor Cristil is really where we get the term Christ consciousness from. And
Okay.
so, yeah. So the Christ consciousness is not an earthly religious Christian terminology, it's a cosmic one. It comes from the star races. It's well known in the cosmos of the Christ consciousness, and not Jesus, but the pure frequency of the Christil, one who has come to offer I don't want to say salvation, but wisdom, enlightenment, purpose, teaching, guidance. And so that's where I get into Krys, because that's what I feel like I'm at now. I'm in a position now where I'm offering perspectives and information to people so that they can become enlightened in their own way and have the whole human race be this glowing orb of transcendent interstellar beings. So that's where Krys comes from.
Awesome. Now, I'm happy
Yeah.
that you brought that up because that really leads me to my next question. And that is, how are you going to, or should I say, how have you been kind of like getting together everything that you've learned in order to share it with your followers, in order to share it with the world and the collective?
Yeah. So how have I been getting it together? Hmm. Yeah. So we're going to be launching the academy. So
Okay.
we have our Cosmic Academy coming up soon. Um, and I think so. Hold on. Can you just rephrase? Because are you asking like what is the framework in which I'm putting my
Well,
work in, or how am I reaching and
exactly.
connecting with people?
Well, basically, let me rephrase. This is kind of a weird question. So
It's okay.
how are you able to get everything that you've learned together in order to teach it to the people that are following you? But on top
Mm,
of that, ultimately, like, what is your intention at this point?
okay. So my how am I getting it together is by getting really clear on the nuances or the bullet points of what's happened since I was a child. And there's still things, the walking experience, and there's how that all connects and everything. But I ask myself, like, okay, what was the point, and what does it mean for me,
Mhm.
and how can I share this with others? So those three things. What was the point of all these things I just said, the information gathered, and the knowledge and wisdom that's being shared? The point was to assist humanity,
Right.
is to assist the collective race of beings that we call the human family. That was the whole point. So I'm an ambassador, a cosmic steward of the interstellar races, here to offer this wisdom in different perspectives. How am I doing that? Honestly, I don't need to do anything physically. I could sit, and I often do sit in meditation and put thoughts out into the field. And this is something I teach in the upcoming academy. And it's funny because this is kind of what the Jedis do. I was doing a lot of the things that Jedis do before I knew what the Jedis were. And I realized that I am one because of just how I operate. And this is one thing. So, how am I reaching others? How do I share this knowledge and wisdom? I could do that just in meditation alone. Because when you understand what the ether is, and that thoughts are a frequency, and that you are enmeshed with others all the time, me just thinking about the well-being of this species, of this planet, of this realm, is creating a ripple. And if people have the consciousness to match, they'll pick up on it. So that's one way. But I'm also um yeah, I'm interested in working with one-on-one people who really want to go deeper into their, not their cosmic lineage, but the understanding of reality, right? The understanding of how things operate and how they can influence things in a positive way. And then the academy, right? So we're putting all this information into a 5-level course, a cosmic academy, which is huge. And then just through my talks, the ones we do here together. Um, and then, yeah, the not the pod, yeah, the podcast I've been on, the YouTube channel, website. So it's kind of all going, here you go, world. Are you ready for it or not?
No, it's perfect. And you kind of already mentioned it, but if I were to ask you what's the perfect candidate for someone who can be a student of yours in Cosmic Academy? And obviously part of that's going to be someone who's experienced something similar to what you've experienced.
Mm.
They're experiencing all these paranormal things and they don't really know where to take with it or where to go with it. So can you explain in your own words what's the perfect candidate for Cosmic Academy?
The perfect candidate for Cosmic Academy would be, no, just kidding. Honestly, the perfect candidate would be the first energy I get, the first energetic impression is someone who is eager to learn, who really wants to come in a humble and a grounded way, and just has this kind of burning desire for answers. And for me, that's really people who have, yeah, who have gone through the things I have, and who have not been able to identify what's happening and want to know, okay, well, what the heck is going on here? that's kind of like the first wave. You get, of the people I'm looking for. The second people are those who are spiritually grounded, who maybe they have had an awakening or several awakenings, yet do they know there's more. They know that the journey does not stop on earth. It actually continues amongst the stars. And they want to know things like, how can I astral project at will consciously? What is a Jedi? They want to know things like, how does time work? What is gravity? How can we build technologies, or how can I use my own technology to have these kinds of mystical experiences? How can I use my higher wisdom to benefit the collective? So I'm looking for these more mature souls who haven't yet connected the spiritual journey to a grounded interstellar experience. Does that make sense?
That makes perfect sense. Absolutely. I'm
Yeah.
definitely like on that list for sure. So
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. No,
Yeah.
I
Because
think a lot of people are, to be honest with you. And I'm curious to find out what a Jedi actually is, because that was
yeah.
going to be my next question. But I think we're gonna go ahead and save that for
Yeah, yeah,
space.
we'll save that because that's like a big
Yeah.
part of the course, and it's it's funny because it gets such an interesting wrap around Star Wars and everything, but
Hmm.
there's a reason these kinds of things are in our mainstream.
Yep.
There is a reason they stem from something. So, I'm excited to share with people more about the truth of the Dor Cristil and the Jedi, and becoming an Etherean essentially, which is the
Yeah.
whole point of the academy.
Absolutely. I'm excited for it. I think that it's going to be pretty amazing. And I
Yeah.
want to say thank you for being so candid and
Mm,
sharing your story and how it led to what you're doing now. I do want to ask you if you have anything coming up, any big
mm.
events, anything that you want to share before we end this year.
Yeah, 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 yeah. And you're welcome. I've thought of like five things of the story that I'm like, well, that's interesting too. So there's a lot, but the gist
Yeah,
is, in short, a lot of ET contacts, supernatural experiences who've led me to understand my cosmic lineage, my own cosmic identity. I backtrack the steps. I'm like, oh, thanks, guys. You've been there the whole time.
right.
Um, thank
We're right
you.
here, ready to
Yeah,
help. Come on, just
right,
ask.
exactly, exactly. Um, but yes, coming up, we have some really cool opportunities for people to meet with me in person. And I don't even like saying that because I feel like it's like, oh, it's all about you, but it's not that it's all about me. It's that it's more like I get a chance to share this wisdom with people who actually are looking for it.
Hmm.
And one of the ways we're doing that is I'm going to be are we doing the podcast? Are we talking about the
Oh yeah,
Shawn Michael podcast? Yeah.
yes, we're still doing that, Sean. It's Sean
Okay.
Michael Kelly.
Okay. So we're going to be on the Shawn Michael Kelly podcast, which is freaking amazing and it's huge, for
Yep, and it's
cosmic
called
frequency. Yeah. Go ahead.
exactly. It basically that the podcast is called Digital Hour. Um, I'm sorry, I should know this. Digital something hour. But
Yeah.
I'm gonna go ahead and put that in the description as well. That way, so you guys can check it out. But go
Yeah.
ahead, continue.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's going to be amazing. We also have a cruise coming up, a 7-day cruise where I will be, and I think T is going to be there. Doing, I think, 3 different workshops, but this is a 7-day cruise from Seattle to Alaska. And it's called Contact at Sea. And I would love for you all to come out and join, because how cool would that be to do star contact, but then drop into meditation and learn about Jin Shindo and Qigong? Um, I'm going to be teaching, what is that? Oh, my first workshop is going to be cosmic consciousness and ET influence. So that's going to be a way where I'm going to be able to teach some of the things I've talked about here today, but also go into how ETs have really been influencing humanity in the different ways they do that. Walk-ins like myself, immersion pods, um, step downs, to telecommunications, telepathy. Um, yeah. And then I'm going to be teaching Jin Shindo and Qigong in the private session. So it's gonna be a 7-day cruise. I think those are the two big things,
Yep,
unless I'm
those are the two
missing
big
something.
ones. Obviously, you're gonna have some podcasts, interviews coming up pretty soon. I'm
Hmm.
staying on top of getting you connected with some new people, basically.
Yeah.
I'm gonna try to make contact at the sea. I'm currently manifesting it. We'll see what
Hmm. Hmm.
happens, but I'm just
Hmm.
gonna go ahead and say I will be there.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Yeah. Um, Yeah, so I'm really excited for Cosmic Frequency because this has been a lifelong endeavor of mine. It has really been an unfolding of my consciousness. And I think I want to end this with sharing a little bit of the purpose of Cosmic Frequency, because I think that's important. Because Cosmic Frequency encompasses, the trips, the events, the academy, but it's like, what's the goal of the work I'm doing? The goal is that humans are in a place now where they are learning how to transcend their own um, nightmares. Basically, they're learning how to be a mature species. I myself am not from here. I'm not saying that to be like, oh, I'm a star seed. I'm not from here. I'm from the fifth dimension. Like that shit, like it irks me really, to be honest. But I'm saying this because I remember where I'm from and how I got here, quite literally, and when I incarnated here. And there was a point in my life where most of the stories I told were pre-walk-in experience. That's why I didn't really have the foundation understand. Post walk-in experience, which is where I'm at now,
Mm.
is when Cosmic Frequency has been really birthed and born, where everything else was kind of like laying the foundation, the energetics. The abductions from the Greys, the gardeners were there to prepare my physical body to be able to hold the frequency that I'm at now. So the consciousness that I'm speaking through now is being projected through an immersion pod program. And that's something that is, it might
Mhm.
seem really sci-fi, but again, sci-fi gets the truth from somewhere.
Yep.
So the point here is that I bring a lot of wisdom and knowledge from the space where another body is at. This sounds so wild, but I'm just gonna go with it.
Just go with it.
Um, and so as cosmic frequency comes through, I'm able to share insights and downloads that are not common to even star seeds, even people who have been on this journey for a long time, because it's always fresh. It's like transmission after transmission after transmission of knowledge and information that's meant to be seeded here for the collective. So my goal is to have humans be able to progress on their journey, and really just be free. Just be free. And that's really what it all comes down to is freedom for the people and the advancement of their spiritual nature. So
Wow. That's very
yeah,
well said. I love that.
yeah, that's
All
like the
right.
short and sweet version of it, right?
Yep. So just a reminder, we're going to be doing these videos every 2 weeks. We'll figure out which date, at the end of
Yeah.
this video, and we'll go ahead and post it in the description. Anything mentioned that is on Krys's website will also be in the description of this video. And I just want to thank you guys for listening, for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.
Awesome. Thank you guys. Peace. Thanks,
Thank
T.
you. Bye.